Democratic Republic of Congo court to give election verdict. Presidential candidates in Nigeria are making promises ahead of next month's polls. And in Tunisia, authorities now say the country is winning the war against terrorism. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Cyril Untal, live in Nairobi. For those of you joining us across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for watching. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines. India dedicates Day for Africa during vibrant Gujarat summit. Madagascar's presidential inauguration ceremony held in Antananarivo. Let's start from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a constitutional court is expected to make a ruling on election results. Opposition leader Martin Fayulu filed a petition after the electoral body announced Felix Tshisekedi as the winner of the December 30 polls. Supporters of the two candidates are gathered outside the court awaiting the court's verdict. The ruling was set to be made at 1400 hours GMT, but there have been delays. Already, the African Union has called on the Electoral Commission to suspend announcement of the final results due to the doubts surrounding the issue. Well, CGTN's Chris Ochemringa is keeping tabs on that story. Chris, as always, thank you for joining us. Chris, there has been some delay in announcing the verdict. What are the reasons for this?
Well, according to one of the lawyers who's gathered here outside the court, saying the government informed them that this is a very important announcement that is supposed to be relayed live by the state broadcaster, RTNC, and that the state broadcaster is currently covering a football match between a top Congolese club and a Tanzanian club, and so they can't be at both places at the same time. So they have to wait until they finish relaying the football match, and then they'll come over here. I also spoke to someone else, a political analyst, who's saying that the order was really given by a top intelligence officer, who said that the announcement should be held until night, because they're fearing that there will be chaos in the country if they announce it right away.
All right, Chris, you've got your finger on the pulse. We're going to rely on your opinions here. With your interaction with various stakeholders and experts, what do you think is going to be the verdict? Well,
like you said, from the interactions I've had, I doubt whether there's going to be any change from what the Electoral Commission announced. The DRC has had, this is in 2006, there was an election, President Kabila against Jean-Pierre Bemba. The election was disputed. They went to court, but the court upheld what the Electoral Commission had said. In 2011, the father of Felix Tshisekedi also stood against President Kabila, went to court, and the court still said that President Kabila had won. So, according to the history of the DRC, the Constitutional Court has never gone against what the Electoral Commission has announced. You see, the presidency here in the DRC is very powerful, and politics ultimately, determines how things play out in the DRC. So I doubt whether they will order a vote recount or cancel the elections altogether.
Well, let's turn our attention to the supporters now, Chris. They have been waiting for hours for the decision to be made by the court. What is their mood like?
Well, the mood is one of excitement on the part of the supporters of Felix Tshisekedi. Hundreds of them are gathered outside, patiently waiting to hear their leader declared the fifth president of the DRC. But then supporters of Mr. Martin Fayulu are nowhere to be seen. They're all, thinking about just waiting to hear what will happen and then plan their next course of action. So there are two different moods around here in Kinshasa right now.
All right, well, there you have it. Court set to make ruling on contested elections. Chris Ochemringa, thank you for your insight and analysis. Still in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the United Nations Human Rights Office has called on all sides to resolve the dispute around the elections through dialogue and not to resort to violence.
We appeal for calm. whenever the results are announced. We've already seen that there has been quite a bit of tension and even violence. I just received reports from colleagues this morning that apparently since the 10th of January announcement of the provisional results, the UN Joint Human Rights Office in the country has documented at least 34 deaths, 59 people wounded, and 241 arbitrary arrests in the DRC. So we are very concerned about this, and we call on all sides to seek to resolve the situation through dialogue and not to resort to violence.
And to Nigeria now. Nigeria's Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, said that next month's polls will be free and fair. Africa's most populous country will be electing their next set of political leaders between the 16th of February and the 2nd of March.
And the second election will hold.
The assurance from the electoral body comes amidst threats by political parties to drag the commission to court over new electoral guidelines. Among other things, the new rules bar phone calls in the tallying room. Out of 91 registered political parties, 61 of them view the clause as an attempt to curtail independent tallying of election results. The ruling APC and the opposition PDP are seen as the main contenders in the polls.
We are committed to free, fair and transparent process such that will consolidate the position of Nigeria in the international community as a nation that conducts credible elections. 2015 is not a fluke.
The February elections will be a litmus test on whether Nigeria can build on the achievements of the 2015 elections, widely seen as credible. It was the first elections where an incumbent Nigerian president conceded defeat. President Muhammad Buhari, who won, is seeking re-election, but he has reportedly promised to ensure free and fair elections. But there are still concerns among some diplomats.
I would like to highlight especially one of the concerns that all our embassies have, and that is about the neutrality of the security services. For us, it's very important, all of our embassies, that the security services, the various ones, provide security for the elections to guarantee the safety of the process and voters, but do so in a way that doesn't interfere with people getting to the polls, for poll watchers, civil society monitors, journalists, and others being able to have access and observe the voting freely.
There is also growing anxiety over the conduct of elections in the troubled northeast, where Boko Haram has escalated attacks on both civilian and military targets. Failure to conduct elections in the region will mean the outcome is short of the minimum requirement that elections must hold in all 36 federal states across Nigeria. Dina Matengo, CGTN.
Well, in less than a month from now, Nigerians will be heading to the polls to elect their next president. Among the candidates on the ballot is incumbent Muhammadu Buhari, who is seeking a second and final term of office. But he faces stiff competition from a former vice president of the country, Atiku Abubakar, who is running on the platform of the opposition's People Democratic Party. Now, the candidates on the campaign trail are making a series of promises. CGTN Deji Badmus reports on the latest from the campaigns.
If there's one election where Nigerians are spoiled for choices, it will be the February 16, 2019 presidential race. Unless anything changes between now and that time, Nigerians will have to elect from a list of 73 presidential candidates. But without prejudice to other candidates, the election is effectively a two-horse race between incumbent Muhammadu Buhari and Atiku Abubakar, a former vice president of the country. And both candidates and their parties have been campaigning vigorously across the country. Nigeria's former ruling party is attempting to stage a comeback with Atiku Abubakar, who only defected from the APC to the PDP a few months ago. The thrust of their campaign is contained in a document called the Atiku Plan, in which the candidate outlined his manifesto to, according to him, get the country working again.
This is one of the most important elections we have ever faced in this country, because our present, our future, the future of our children and grandchildren is going to be determined by this election. If you make the mistake and return APC to power, you will have yourselves to blame.
Incumbent Muhammadu Buhari and the ruling APC have also been making their case for re-election. Encapsulated in a document called Next Level, the president and his party are pledging to build on what they say is their achievements in the area of security, the economy and the fight against corruption.
They say they spent $16 billion, not naira, on power. Where is the power? I am warning you, don't make any mistake of choosing any PDP candidate. What they will try to do is to cover the theft they have committed against the nation. I assure you, I will follow the system. Anybody that was found responsible, we will get him, take away the money from him, put it in the treasury.
Like in 2015, security, the economy and corruption have been the dominant topics on the campaign trail. But don't expect that to define the outcome of this election. In Nigeria, sentiments, both political and ethnic, are usually crucial to how people vote. And it's partly for that reason that both candidates have chosen their running mates from different parts of the south of the country. While Abubakar's running mate is from the southeast, Buhari's running mate is from the southwest. The campaigns have so far been very heated up and sometimes temperamental, and things could go up a notch further as D-Day moves closer. But eventually, it will be down to the over 80 million Nigerians who have registered to vote in this election to decide who will lead this African giant in the next 4 years. CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
In Somalia, government forces have recorded a huge success following against al-Shabaab fighters. This follows a raid by the militants on a military base south of the country. 73 militants were killed and 2 government soldiers, the heaviest defeat for the group so far this year. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo has more.
These are the remains of what was an explosive-laden vehicle that detonated outside a military base south of Mogadishu. The dawn attack claimed by al-Shabaab targeted Sanguni base, 50 kilometers north of the port city of Kismayo. Government forces also nabbed a second vehicle modified to withstand heavy gunfire. It is believed that the group planned to detonate it inside the base to inflict heavy casualties. Al-Shabaab claims to have killed 41 government soldiers in that attack.
Armed fighters attacked our forces at this forward operating base, but our forces had prior intelligence of an impending attack. We destroyed 3 trucks with dozens of militants on board, and the rest fled after we overpowered them.
Al-Shabaab has in the past launched deadly raids on the forward operating base belonging to both the National Army and regional troops from Jubaland. State broadcaster also reported that an aerial strike destroyed several battle wagons and dozens of militants on board. In the past, US military has carried out strikes in support of local forces. Army commanders in the region say that one of the trucks laden with explosives was also meant to destroy a strategic bridge but failed to reach its intended target. 2 government soldiers died in that attack. Meanwhile, the regional president has announced an all-out offensive against the group that remains active in the region, blockading towns and villages.
The best defense is a good defense. Instead of waiting to retaliate an attack, we need to reopen key supply routes and districts to our people and allow smooth movement of goods and people. It's time we win this war and reclaim our towns and villages from the control of militants.
Earlier this week, the Al-Qaeda-linked group killed 21 people in a siege on a high-end hotel in Nairobi. Kenya is among several African countries contributing troops under the multinational peacekeeping force known as AMISOM. Militant group Al-Shabaab has repeatedly targeted Kenyan troops and Somali forces near Kismayo, a strategic port town in southern Somalia that for years served as a lifeline for the group, from which it made millions of dollars through the illegal sale of charcoal, funds that allowed it to sustain its operations for years. Kenyan troops seized control of the town in 2012, a move that has allowed the federal government to exert control in the region for the first time in decades. However, Saturday's attack is by far the militants' heaviest loss this year, one that experts say the government must capitalize on as it seeks to push out the group from its remaining strongholds. Abdulaziz Billo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
And staying with security matters, since 2012, Tunisia has been hit by an unprecedented wave of terror attacks by ISIL and Al-Qaeda. The terrorists plan to destabilize the North African state during its transitional period. 6 years later, over 200 soldiers, policemen, and ordinary citizens were killed in multiple terror attacks across the country. Authorities now say Tunisia is winning the war on terrorism.
The head of the National Counter-Terrorism Commission has warned against potential terror threats posed by Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb region and ISIL, who have established permanent hideout in the mountainous area near the border with Algeria. Accordingly, the state is now reinforcing its capacities to win the war on terror.
20 ministries have presented their plan to contribute to the national effort to combat terrorism. The war on terror will be long, but we are confident about the outcome. Tunisian security forces and the army will defeat terror networks.
Colonel Ben Nasser revealed that the assets of many terrorists who financed Al-Qaeda group in the region were only recently frozen.
Some terrorists were free to use their bank accounts, money and assets until October 2018. Now, thanks to the coordination and the national effort between all the state agencies, ministries and intelligence services, we've been able to collect data and to freeze their assets. The judiciary will later determine responsibilities.
The
Special National Security Unit in Bizerta arrested this week a 35-year-old man suspected of belonging to a terrorist organization. According to the Interior Ministry, the Special Unit services stormed the suspect's home after a period of surveillance and evidence gathering. Authorities say many suspects were arrested in connection with the case and several other terror plots in Tunisia. Prime Minister Youssef al-Shahed said during a meeting with the 24 governors that terrorists will be defeated. He urged all state departments to work together and to guarantee security across the country.
The state is ready to face any terror threat. Governors have all the necessary means to combat terrorism. There are many security challenges ahead, but Tunisia is very safe thanks to our brave security forces and the military.
During a hearing session at Parliament, Interior Minister Hisham Fourati warned against the threat of the return of terrorists from Syria and other conflict zones. Over 100 militants were arrested. However, authorities believe that returnees now belong to terrorist sleeper cells. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
India seems to be taking a keen interest in Africa. This was proved after the Asian nation dedicated an African Day during this year's vibrant Gujarat Investment Summit. The summit is taking place in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's home state of Gujarat on Saturday. Here is more to that.
His Excellency, Mr.
India's footprints on the African continent dates back centuries. During this year's vibrant Gujarat Investment Summit, the Asian nation confirmed Africa's growing trade and bilateral relations.
We are organizing Africa Day for the first time during vibrant Gujarat Summit. And this is also the first time that we are dedicating a day to an entire continent. This is a clear recognition of the enhanced importance we attach to the pace of African economies in the development and growth map in the contemporary world.
India's Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj says although the dedication of the day for the entire African continent is unprecedented, it's a sign of better days ahead.
In the last 4 years, our long-standing ties with Africa have acquired vibrancy and dynamism. There has been unprecedented intensification of our political engagement with Africa, with 29 visits to African countries at the level of President, Vice President and Prime Minister, apart from several ministerial visits.
Ministers drawn from African countries such as Morocco, Rwanda and Congo are attending the summit. As part of scaling up trade and diplomatic ties, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government plans to open more embassies on the continent. Meanwhile, South Africa's president has been invited to India's Republic Day celebrations, which will be observed on the 26th of January. With a net investment of about $54 billion, India is Africa's 5th largest trade partner. Mahemutwa, CGTN.
All right, this is Africa Live on CGTN. Time now for a short break. We've got your sports news coming up next. Let's take a look at it. Mamelodi Sundowns out to set their continental chase back on track against Wydad Casablanca.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's talk a bit of football. We begin with the African football, where South African League champions Mamelodi Sundowns will look to bounce back from their surprise CAF Champions League defeat away to Lobi Stars of Nigeria, when they take on former champions Wydad Casablanca in their second Group A clash on Saturday. Here is CGTN's CS Duplessis with more.
Mamelodi Sundowns coach Pitso Mosimane can be forgiven for complaining about fixture congestion. But when you are as successful as the Kleurkop club, the fixtures tend to come thick and fast, especially when you have continental cup commitments and your club has ambitions of reclaiming their 2016 title.
I know it's difficult to change from CAF to league to cup game. It's difficult, but it's something which we have been doing for the past 5 years, and yeah, we're enjoying it. We're not complaining, yeah.
The last meeting against the Moroccan outfit saw Sundowns lose 1-0 in Rabat, ending their run in the competition. But striker Anthony Lafort insists it isn't about revenge, and there's plenty respect for their opponents this weekend.
Yeah, they are a good team, you know. Those guys, they don't miss chances, you know. Whenever they get one, they score. And I think we need to be very careful. But then they should also be careful because now we started scoring goals.
The reigning South African League champions know that they will need to improve after their outing in Nigeria, and that their fans will expect them to be victorious at the Lucas Masterpieces Moripe Stadium on Saturday night.
For us, I think we know what is expected of us, and it wasn't a good result we got. That's not the result we wanted to get in Nigeria, but it wasn't meant to be. We lost that game, and yeah, we're looking at the game which is coming, which is on Saturday as well. Yeah.
The 2016 champions insist that the disappointment of not reaching the group stages last season is long gone, and despite not getting off to a winning start in Nigeria last week, that they will find their rhythm soon, and visiting teams will find it extremely difficult to beat Masandawana at home this campaign. CS Duplessis, CGTN, Johannesburg.
All right, a bit of news from the world of tennis now. To the Australian Open we go, and Garbine Muguruza is through to the third round of the Australian Open following a 6-4, 6-7, 7-5 win over Johanna Konta in the early hours of Friday. Now, the Spaniard came out on top after a tight first set that ended 6-4 after both rain and extended matches earlier ensured that play didn't get underway until after 12:30 a.m. local time. Now, 2016 Melbourne semifinalist Konta then fought back and claimed the second set on a tiebreak. The third set went through with a serve and seems to be headed for another tiebreak before Muguruza snatched a decisive break to serve in the 12th game to set up a meeting with Tamia Banszewski for a place in the round of 16.
Very tough. I think Johanna was playing also very good, serving incredible big shots. I just tried to fight and hang in there, and I don't know, I feel like there's people watching us. I'm like motivated, you know, it's like we play for you guys, otherwise why would we be here, for what?
It was a really tough match. I think it was a high level in general. I think both of us, played really well. I think she started better than I did, but then I thought I did a good job at raising my level to make it a competitive match. And I mean, I think there was only a few points in it at the end.
And in other news, let's now head back to Madagascar, where newly elected President Andry Rajoelina has been sworn in. The inauguration ceremony was held in Mahasina Municipal Stadium in the capital, Antananarivo. 9 Constitutional Court judges witnessed this. Heads of African states, together with Chinese President Xi Jinping's special envoy, He Wei, were in attendance. Rajoelina starts his 5-year term as the country strives to end years of political turmoil that has caused economic stagnation. In his speech, he has promised to heal the nation and revive the economy. Well, I guess that's it for this edition of Africa Live. Remember, you can send us your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on digital media platforms. For the team, I'm Richard Searle saying thank you so much for watching, and we will be right back here, same time tomorrow. Till then, take care.